The morning air hung thick with humidity as Officer Rachel Monroe pulled her cruiser up the long gravel driveway of the Hastings farm. Her K9 partner, Zeus, a powerful German shepherd with eyes that missed nothing, sat alert in the passenger seat, his ears perked at every rustle of the surrounding trees. The radio call had been vague, possible trespassing, strange noises coming from the old barn, but the urgency in the dispatcher's voice said there was more to it. Rachel glanced at the cracked barn in the distance. The roof sagged, one door hung loosely off its hinge, and the place looked like it hadn't seen a soul in years. But the way the caller, Mrs. Hastings, had sounded, shaky, almost afraid, made Rachel's stomach knot. As she stepped out, boots crunching on the gravel, Zeus leapt out and instantly began scanning the property. Rachel knocked once on the farmhouse door before an elderly woman with stark white hair and trembling hands opened it. "Thank God you're here," she whispered, pulling a shawl tighter around her shoulders. "It's not the first night we've heard things. Something's in there. Last night, my grandson saw a figure. Thought it was a coyote at first. But then it walked on two legs." She shuddered. "I told him not to go near the barn, but he's stubborn. And now, this morning, his bike's in the driveway but he's nowhere to be found." Rachel's heart skipped a beat. "What's your grandson's name?" "Lucas," she said, her voice cracking. "He's 13. Zeus barked sharply, his nose to the ground, pulling toward the barn like a magnet. Rachel gave Mrs. Hastings a firm nod. "Stay inside. We'll check it out." She followed Zeus down the path toward the barn. The wooden structure loomed ahead, its weathered boards groaning softly in the wind. A flock of crows erupted from the roof as they approached, cawing loudly as they took off into the sky. Zeus's body stiffened, tail low and steady. Rachel unlatched the safety on her holster and drew her flashlight, sweeping the beam across the exterior. Scattered prints in the dirt near the barn door caught her eye, a human, barefoot, and small. "Lucas?" "Zeus, search," she commanded, and the dog responded instantly, slipping inside the barn's dark mouth like a shadow. The smell hit her first: mold, decay, and something else. Something sharp and metallic. Blood? She swallowed hard, heart thudding. Her flashlight danced across the hay-covered floor, revealing broken tools, rusted nails, and half-collapsed wooden crates. Then, a soft growl from Zeus. Low, tense. She stepped forward. Zeus had stopped near a stack of hay bales pushed awkwardly against the far wall. His ears were flattened now, his teeth bared. Something was behind those bales. Rachel raised her voice. "Lucas? This is the police. If you're in there, say something." No response. Zeus lunged suddenly, pawing and biting at the hay until a narrow opening was revealed. Rachel edged closer, then crouched low and peered inside. What she saw made her freeze. A small hatch, barely visible, was embedded in the barn floor beneath the hay. It looked like it had been added long after the barn was built, the wood mismatched and freshly cut. Rachel's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a hiding spot, it was a secret chamber. She radioed it in. Unit 12 requesting backup. Found hidden access in barn floor. Possible missing child inside. Zeus whined and nosed the hatch, clearly agitated. Rachel knelt, gripped the iron ring embedded in the hatch door, and pulled it open. The hinges creaked loud enough to make her flinch. A set of crude wooden steps led down into a cold, damp darkness. Rachel clicked on her flashlight and descended carefully, Zeus at her side. The underground chamber was narrow and low-ceilinged. The smell of damp earth was overpowering. The beam of her light revealed what looked like an old root cellar, walls lined with stones, the floor covered in straw and trash. But what truly sent chills down her spine were the chains bolted to the far wall, and the worn-down teddy bear lying just beneath them. "Lucas?" Rachel called, louder now, voice echoing. Suddenly Zeus barked and rushed forward toward a small alcove. Rachel followed, weapon drawn. Behind a pile of old crates, a figure stirred. A boy, disheveled, pale, and clearly terrified. His eyes widened at the sight of Zeus and the flashlight, and he shrank back. "Lucas, it's okay. I'm a police officer." "You're safe now," she said gently, holstering her weapon. The boy hesitated, then stepped into the light. Scratches lined his arms, and he was barefoot and shaking. "He said not to scream," Lucas whispered. "He said if I screamed, he'd come back." Rachel's blood ran cold. "Who, Lucas? Who said that?" But before he could answer, Zeus spun around, snarling at the top of the stairwell. Footsteps, heavy ones, pounded above them. Someone was in the barn. Rachel grabbed Lucas and positioned herself between him and the stairway. Zeus barked wildly, warning of the threat above. Rachel's radio crackled, but she didn't dare take her eyes off the stairs. The door at the top slammed shut, plunging them into silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of it being locked from the outside. Rachel clenched her jaw. Backup better get here fast. But what chilled her most wasn't the thought of being trapped underground. It was the quiet words Lucas whispered behind her, trembling. "He's still here. He never left." For a heartbeat, the darkness in the cellar felt suffocating, pressing down on Rachel's shoulders like the weight of the earth itself. She gripped her flashlight tighter, its beam trembling as it cut through the damp air. Zeus stood poised at the base of the stairs, muscles taut, growling in a low, deadly rhythm. Above them, the heavy thud of footsteps moved deliberately across the barn floor. Whoever was up there wasn't panicked, they were confident, steady, and worst of all, unafraid. Rachel's training kicked in. "Stay behind me, Lucas," she whispered, motioning for the boy to crouch down near the wall. He obeyed instantly, eyes wide with fear, clutching the shredded remnants of the teddy bear that lay on the cellar floor. Rachel's radio crackled again, but it was just static. No voices. No confirmation of backup. She cursed under her breath. The remote farm sat in a signal-dead zone. She should have expected this. She turned to Zeus, gently touching his side. "Ready, boy?" Zeus gave a quiet whine and took his position beside her, eyes never leaving the stairwell. With her gun drawn and her flashlight in her left hand, Rachel started up the steps one careful tread at a time. The air grew warmer the closer she got to the top, the silence above unsettling. No footsteps now. Just stillness. She reached the hatch door and pushed. It didn't budge. Locked tight. She pressed her ear against the wood. At first, there was nothing. Then, creaking boards. Breathing. A presence. Suddenly, Zeus lunged upward, slamming his body into the door. The wood groaned but didn't give. Whoever had locked it had jammed something heavy on top. Rachel banged on it with the butt of her flashlight. "This is the police. You're obstructing an officer and holding a minor hostage. Surrender now." Her voice echoed uselessly in the dusty silence. No reply. Just more creaking, and then the unmistakable sound of footsteps moving away from the barn. Rachel's mind raced. If the captor was leaving, she might have a shot at breaking the door down. She looked at Zeus, who was already digging at the base of the hatch, then turned to Lucas. "Is there any other way out of this cellar?" Lucas hesitated, then nodded. "There's a tunnel. He used it when he didn't want anyone to hear him coming or going." Rachel's stomach turned. "Where does it lead?" I think the cornfield." "There's a hole behind the stones," he said, pointing toward the back wall of the cellar. Rachel ran to where he indicated and shined her light. Sure enough, a section of the stone wall had a small gap at the bottom, partially covered by hay and loose dirt. She kicked the debris aside, revealing a narrow, crudely dug tunnel. The stench from it was even worse than the cellar, earthy, damp, and tinged with something foul. She turned back to Lucas. "Stay right behind me, okay? And stay quiet. Zeus will lead us." Zeus didn't wait for a command. The moment Rachel dropped to her knees and began crawling through, he ducked low and crept ahead, sniffing every inch. The tunnel was tight, barely high enough to maneuver, and the walls brushed against Rachel's arms and shoulders with every inch she moved. Her flashlight illuminated scratch marks along the dirt, evidence of repeated use. Someone had come through here many times. They crawled for what felt like forever, the silence broken only by the shuffling of limbs and the steady breath of Zeus ahead. Finally, a sliver of light appeared at the far end. Rachel's heart surged. They were close. Zeus reached the tunnel's exit first and slipped out into a patch of overgrown weeds just beyond the edge of the barn's cornfield. Rachel pulled herself out next, covered in dirt and breathing hard, helping Lucas through after her. The boy looked pale, but his legs held firm. Rachel scanned the area. In the distance, she spotted movement, a figure running along the edge of the field, heading toward the woods. She couldn't make out details, but something about the lanky stride and long coat was off. The figure didn't turn, didn't panic, just kept moving with eerie calm. Rachel didn't hesitate. Zeus, track! The German shepherd surged forward, muscles rippling as he followed the scent. Rachel gripped her radio again, trying one more time. This time, the static gave way to a voice. Unit 12, we're 10 minutes out. Do you need assistance? She pressed the button. Suspect fleeing on foot, headed northeast through the cornfield. Child is safe. I'm in pursuit. Rachel and Lucas ran after Zeus, darting between the tall stalks that swayed ominously in the wind. The world became a tunnel of green and gold, the sounds of snapping cornstalks and pounding footsteps all around. Somewhere ahead, Zeus barked sharply. They burst into a clearing, and there he was. A man, tall, filthy, his face partially hidden behind a hood. He turned, startled for the first time, and stumbled backward. Zeus circled him, snarling, keeping him boxed in. Rachel raised her gun. On the ground. Now, she shouted. The man hesitated, then did something Rachel didn't expect. He smiled. You don't understand, he muttered. I was protecting them. The others. The ones no one ever found. Rachel's heart stopped. What others? But before he could answer, he lunged, not at her, but at the woods, trying to vanish once more. Zeus tackled him mid-stride, slamming him into the dirt. Rachel rushed in, cuffs ready. As she restrained him, Lucas stood frozen nearby, eyes locked on the man who had terrorized him for days. The boy whispered, he said he wasn't the only one. Said others helped him. Watched. Rachel stared down at the suspect, now muttering incoherently about a group, about keeping them quiet, about dark places where no one hears screaming. Her blood ran cold. Backup arrived moments later, officers storming into the field, weapons drawn. As they took the suspect into custody and secured the scene, Rachel knelt beside Lucas, pulling him close. It's over, she said softly. You're safe now. But in her gut, she knew the truth. It wasn't over. The barn had given up one dark secret, but how many more were buried beneath its rotting floorboards? Zeus stood guard beside them, ever watchful. Because sometimes the real monsters don't hide under beds. They hide in plain sight.